They say that nothing gets in the way of true love, but don't let this guy hear you say that. This is Paul. He wants to marry his girlfriend Sophia, but there's just one tiny little problem. She's not his girlfriend, and he's a delusional creep who thinks that they're supposed to be together forever. That's why he escaped from the loony bin and hatched a devious plan to get all of their friends together for the big night. But for Sophia, she'll be lucky to make it through the ceremony alive. So we're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the obsessed freaks in Borderline. So this wedding is about to turn into a massacre. Paul here just became the luckiest man in the world because he's finally getting married to the love of his life, the famous pop star Sophia Minor. Everybody said he was crazy for thinking that she'd ever say yes, but it looks like somehow he actually pulled it off, and this is how it happened. It all started one night a few months ago when Paul put on his fanciest suit and showed up at her house in the Hollywood Hills. The woman's security guard Belle answers the door, and feeling pretty confident, he announces that he's there to ask for her hand in marriage. But Belle here has dealt with this kind of guy before, and trying to go easy on him, he tells Paul to just quit being a creep and go home. Of course, Paul refuses to take no for an answer, but just when it seems like he's finally gone, the security guard hears another ring at the doorbell. This time he opens up the door to find Paul holding a knife up to his neck, but that's when things get even stranger. Bizarrely, he starts speaking to the man as if he actually is Sophia, and wanting to keep him safe, Belle decides that the only choice is to play along. When he's finished, Belle asks Paul to give him the knife, but it turns out to be a poor choice of words because suddenly he stabs the bodyguard straight in the chest and sprints into the house, throwing himself a party with Sophia's things until he finally decides to turn himself in. Alright, this guy just gave the words "I'm crazy about you" an entirely new meaning. The truth is, this could have gone a lot worse, and they're extremely lucky that the real Sophia isn't home, because otherwise, she would have been in for the worst meet and greet of her life. Now, Belle almost had the situation under control, but he made a fatal mistake by underestimating just how dangerous this Paul guy could be. Paul here shows all the signs of a rare subtype of delusional disorder, where he believes that Sophia, a high-status celebrity, is madly in love with him, even though in reality that couldn't be farther from the truth. The problem is, there's nothing anyone can say to convince him it's not true, because in his mind, they're already in a ship, and anyone who says otherwise is just a hater trying to get in their way of their, perfect little life, right? It's so bad that he even experiences full-blown psychotic symptoms, like seeing an invisible ring and believing that Belle actually was Sophia herself. Now, with all that being said, it's pretty obvious that this guy isn't playing with a full deck of cards, but there were also signs that he could be dangerous, like he knew way too many intimate details about their personal lives, like how Belle's wife had recently passed away, and how he and Sophia would do puzzles in their spare time. That's the stuff that you could only really know if you've been watching very closely, and someone who's comfortable crossing the boundary into full-blown stalking is just one step away from turning violent at any time. But despite all the warning signs, Belle didn't take that threat seriously the first time, and it almost cost him his life. Repeat offenders like Paul here are also known to escalate, so instead of just threatening to call the police, Belle should have done it the minute he showed up, and also called Sophia, warning her that it wasn't safe to come home. When he came to the door a second time, Belle tried to de-escalate so the guy wouldn't get hurt, but he clearly should have been more worried about his own safety than some random creeps. When a guy this unpredictable is standing there holding a weapon, the absolute last thing you want to do is get close enough for physical contact. Instead, he should have tried calming him down from the doorway until the police got there. That way, if Paul made a move, he'd be able to shut the door and lock him out. After all, it's better to risk the life of this crazy stalker than to put himself and Sophia in danger, but as we're about to see, even getting arrested won't be enough to keep him away for long. 6 months later, Sophia here is hanging out with her NBA player boyfriend Devontae when they get a surprise visit from Belle, who's now all healed up after the attack. He's coming back to work as her bodyguard after a few months of recovery, but there's someone else who he has to pay a visit to first. Back in the city, he arrives at his daughter Abby's apartment where he finds the girl waiting for him on the roof, and she admits that she's nervous about him going back to work. To make matters worse, Paul keeps calling the girl every now and then for no clear reason. Trying to make her feel better, he promises that the man can't hurt them again, but tonight, Her worst fears are about to come true. Meanwhile, somewhere else in the city, Paul's best friend J.H. heads to a storage locker where he picks up a big red box and loads it into the bed of his truck. At the same time, Sophia and Devante head to a nightclub for some dancing, having no idea that her stalker is about to crash the party. Back at his apartment, Belle is chilling on the couch when he gets the call that he's been dreading for months. Paul escaped, along with a strange new accomplice, and he immediately knows that there's only one place that they could be going. Sometime after dark, Paul jumps into the truck with his buddy J.H., who's surprised when a strange little French lady gets in with him. Introducing them, he explains that she's his new assistant Penny, and she's there to help them make his dream wedding become a reality. After getting back from the club, Sophia's surprised to see Belle and a police officer waiting in the driveway. Looking serious, he breaks the news that Paul escaped from the hospital, and she pats him on the shoulder as she walks inside, knowing that he'll do everything he can to keep her safe. For the stalkers, their first stop is the home of Pastor Lutzner, who Paul needs to officiate the wedding. Going to the door, Paul lures the man into coming outside by pretending that her car broke down, and before he knows it, he's taken prisoner by the girl and her crazy friends. Back at Sophia's, her boyfriend asks Belle for a phone to call a cab, but he offers to let him stay in the guest room instead, giving the guy some tour merch so he can change out of his club clothes. When he asks about the attack, Belle explains that it's a miracle that he survived, but little do they know that their luck is about to run out. Meanwhile, at his daughter's apartment, the girl's Aunt Eleanor is folding laundry when she hears a suspicious noise from somewhere outside, and looking out the window, she's horrified to see Paul's friend J.H. staring back at her from across the street. Worried, she calls Belle to tell him what's going on, and grabbing the blicky, he immediately speeds over there to help them, warning Devante to lock the doors as soon as he's gone. Okay, it looks like Sophia's biggest fan is coming back for another visit, and if what happened last time is anything to go off of, then everyone needs to be very afraid. Now, although we know that Sophia is this guy's main target, Belle made the right decision here by leaving to protect his family first. Remember, Paul's been calling his daughter Abby from the hospital ever since the night of the attack, so whatever his reasons are, we have to assume that she's also still in danger. Belle already warned Aunt Eleanor to call the police, but she needs to be specific about what she tells them. Just saying that there's a creepy guy across the street isn't really enough to get a good response. She needs to add the context that a known stalker of her family just escaped from the hospital, framing the incident as an active threat so that the police will be more likely to take her concerns seriously. Either way, it's going to be a minute before help gets there, but with JH standing right outside, there's no time to waste. First, I'd start by locking down the apartment and placing a sturdy piece of furniture against the door in case he tries to break in. They're going to want to avoid a fight at all costs, but it's never a bad idea to have a weapon ready in case they have to defend themselves. So I'd grab something like a frying pan or a kitchen knife and keep it nearby until 12 arrives. Now, when it comes to Sophia herself, things are a little bit different. Given the fact that she has Devante and her security guard Waylon still on the property, it might seem like her best choice is to lock down the house and wait it out. But she actually has a much better option here. Think about it this way, right? They know that Paul is eventually coming to the crib. But if she just got out of there right now, then he'd have no way of knowing where she went. With this in mind, Sophia should actually get right back in the car with Devante and leave for a more secure location, like the police station or a hotel where she has a good relationship with the security. As a bonus, they could even use this as a way to set a trap for Paul by leaving the lights on to make it look like she's still in the house, giving the police a chance to hide nearby and arrest him as soon as he showed up. Then all she'd have to do is wait for the problem to solve itself. But as usual, she's not taking the threat seriously enough, and now it's only a matter of time before he strikes again. While Sophia's getting cleaned up, her boyfriend wanders into the office and finds his name on a list of potential co-stars, realizing that she only started dating him to see if he was a good fit for her next project. Slightly hurt, he turns around to find her standing in the doorway, and she's surprised to learn that her bodyguard suddenly disappeared. At the apartment, a police officer arrives before Belle, and the aunt explains the situation with the creepy man standing across the street. The officer doesn't take her seriously at first, and he seems more worried about a big musical audition that he has coming up in the morning, but she insists on having him take a look around outside. After making some tea, Sophia realizes that her boyfriend boyfriend has something on his mind, and he explains that he feels like one of her puzzles, saying that she played with him for fun only to break up their relationship as soon as she's done with it. Well, Sophia here is an actress, not a therapist, and she's honestly grossed out to see the guy get so emotional, but somebody with an even more delusional idea of their relationship is about to pop up. Outside, her security guard, Waylon, is watching the cameras when he notices that someone left a mysterious box in the driveway. As he goes to check it out, the power to the house suddenly goes out, and he rushes back to the guard shack to see what happened. While he's fiddling with the monitors, the girl Penny skips up behind him and stands there quietly in the doorway. Waiting for the man to turn around, she punches him squat in the nuts as hard as she can before kicking him in the face and stealing his cowboy hat, all with one swift move. Pouncing on top of him, she grabs a taser and starts zapping him on the neck. Choking, he starts spitting up vomit all over the girl's face, but she just laughs and spits it right back at him. While she's distracted, he grabs a fork and plunges it into her leg, throwing her against the wall as he starts hammering the girl with punches, but it's still not enough. Grabbing a cable, she pulls the microwave off the counter and drops it straight onto his back before shoving the flashlight back into his mouth and slamming it down as hard as she can. Okay, and I thought Paul was supposed to be the crazy one here, but his new assistant might be even more messed up. This is not good, and instead of underestimating the threat like always, they had every reason to believe that they were already in trouble. First, let's talk about Waylon here, because if he'd only been a little bit more careful, then he could have stopped this attack before it even started. Knowing that Paul was definitely coming their way, he should have already been on high alert. So when a giant suspicious box showed up at the front gate, his reaction should have been completely different. Instead of getting closer to check it out, he should have followed the same suspicious package protocol used by real security guards and law enforcement. Anytime that there's a suspicious object that could be considered a threat, they're trained to immediately get everyone as far away as possible and then contact the police so that they can deal with the package safely. For Waylon, his job would have been to retreat back at the house, find Sophia and Devante, and establish like a safe room where they could wait for backup to arrive, but by letting his guard down, he let himself wide open for a sneak attack, and that's exactly what ended up happening. Now, Penny here may be nuts, but she's only human, so all you need is the right strategy to win the fight. When she climbed on top of Waylon and had him pinned to the floor, his best option would have been to use an escape technique called the bridge and roll. First, use your left hand to trap the attacker's right arm against their body, while at the same time using your left foot to put pressure on their right ankle. Once you have a firm grip, explosively rotate your entire body towards the trapped side, and if you do it right, you'll end up on top of them instead, giving you a chance to finish the fight or run for your life. To be perfectly fair, that's not exactly easy to pull off when he's zapping you with a taser, so once the taser came into play, he should have used both hands to push her wrist against the floor, and then rotated his whole body on top of her right arm, trying to wrestle the weapon out of her grip. Now with that being said, Waylon put up the best fight he really could, but now it's up to Sophia and Devante to fend for themselves, and personally, I wouldn't be wasting any time. After suddenly losing power, the stalker could already be in the house. So first, I'd grab any weapons that I could find and barricade themselves inside whatever room they're already in. They should use a phone to call for help if they still can, but it might already be too late, so if help isn't coming soon enough, then they'll need an escape plan. Worst case scenario, they need to grab the keys, fight their way to a car, and try to get out of there before Paul has a complete control of the situation. New channel alert! New channel alert! What up, Meat Shields? It's your boy dropping in real quick to let you know some huge news. How to Beat is officially expanding its universe with a brand new channel. Yeah, that's right, even more yapping from your boy truly. The new channel is called Couch Logic. This latest endeavor from the How to Beat team will dive deeper into everything pop culture. We'll have ranking videos, video essays, and more. We'll be covering all types of movies, TV shows, and video games, and not just stuff in the horror genre. And it won't just be me. Many of the other behind-the-scenes team members at How to Beat, aka my homies, will be stepping into the spotlight to help me take this to the next level. So tell a friend to tell a friend, come check out the new channel, Couch Logic, linked in the description down below. As Devante goes to leave, he starts to worry when he notices that the security guard is missing. Inside, Sophia uses a chair to reach a lock high on the door, only for it to break as soon as she gets it shut. So, going back through the house, she notices that one of the windows is open, shutting it as she goes to make sure that the others are all locked. But just then, she hears a strange noise from somewhere inside of the house, and lighting a candle, she's horrified to see that somebody finished the puzzle she's been working on since the night of the attack. She's so distracted that she doesn't notice Paul lurking in the shadows right behind her. And that's when she hears the tea kettle whistling in the kitchen. Going to shut it off, she bumps into an open cutlery drawer, and suddenly she gets the feeling that somebody is standing just a few inches away. Meanwhile, Devontae makes his way to the garage where he flips the breaker to cut the lights back on, and all of a sudden, Paul wraps his arms around Sophia from behind, saying how much he's missed her as a terrified look crosses her face. Pushing him off, she backs into a corner and tells him to get the hell out of her house, but he pushes her up against the countertop and starts leaning in for a kiss. Grabbing the nearest solid object, she hauls off and blasts him straight in the head, pelting him with anything that she can find before making a break for the door. The only problem is, she can't reach the latch without something to stand on, and as her boyfriend tries to help from the other side, Paul sneaks up from behind and smashes her head against the glass, knocking her out cold while Devontae can't do anything else but watch. Okay, well, it looks like we just figured out the genre of Sophia's next movie. It's a horror film, and she might not make it to the sequel. The truth is, she had plenty of chances to avoid what happened, but instead of taking things seriously, she wanted to act all nonchalant about it until it was already too late. Well, I hope you're ready to take this parasocial relationship official, because Sophia, you just up. Like, let's try to remember who we're dealing with here, alright? Less than 6 months ago, this guy showed up at your front door in the middle of the night wielding a massive knife and stabbed your bodyguard so badly that he should have bled out right on the spot, really. You got incredibly lucky that he turned himself in instead of hiding in the shower until you came home, so after barely missing a deadly confrontation the first time, you'd think you'd be just a little bit more concerned that he'd already escaped from the hospital and was headed your way. Actually, a little bit concerned is an understatement, because if it were me, I would have been calling the FBI, the CIA, Power Rangers, and the damn Justice League as soon as I found out that this guy was on the loose. Plus, you put all your faith in one security guard without even calling in some extra backup or help from the police. That's not just an underreaction, that's basically not reacting at all, so you might as well just have left the front door open and rolled out the red carpet while you were at it. And you know, speaking of leaving things open, the fact that there was even a single unlocked window anywhere in the house just goes to show how invincible you really thought you were. You might be too busy thinking about your next career move to care about something silly like personal safety, but for the rest of us who don't have a bodyguard watching our every move, we know how to recognize the signs of danger when they're staring at you right in the face. As soon as the power went out, that was your sign that shit is about to get real, but instead of doing anything about it, you just broke the heart of your only meat shield and left yourself completely alone and defenseless. Well, now it looks like you're getting married whether you like it or not, and you'll be lucky just to survive the reception, so sorry Sophia, but it looks like you kind of up. Back in the city, Belle arrives at his daughter's apartment and immediately rushes inside, never noticing the police officer's bike on the other side of a tree. Getting upstairs, they tell him that the officer should have been outside, and he can tell right away that they're all in danger. Only a minute earlier, the officer was busy practicing the absolute hell out of his show tunes when he noticed that somebody took the chain off of his bike. So he leaned over to check it out, and JH quietly snuck up from behind and started choking the hell out of him with the bike chain, using it to brutally snap his neck before dragging his body down a nearby alley. Coming outside, Belle notices the bike and tells the others to wait in the car, but that was his biggest mistake. Suspiciously, he takes out the tool and decides to check the alley, but he doesn't notice the officer's body hidden in the back of the man's truck. Going back to the car, he gets in the passenger seat thinking that it's safe, only as soon as he puts on the seatbelt, he hears the gun click right behind his head. It's JH, and throwing his weapon out of the window, he orders the family to start driving towards Sophia's house. Back over in the hills, Paul takes an unconscious Sophia and carries her to the shower where he cleans up her injuries in preparation for their big night. After taking care of his bride-to-be, he goes to the door and finds Penny sitting on top of the big red crate, and she's delighted to report that she's already racked up her first murder. The two of them just laugh it off like the sick freaks that they are until sometime later when Sophia wakes up on the floor of her recording booth. Getting back to her feet, she hears Paul talking to her through the microphone, and he apologizes for taking so long to set this up. He explains that he had some personal stuff to work through, as if that wasn't obvious enough already, but now he says that nothing is going to keep them apart. Frustrated, Sophia is about to say that he's having a mental breakdown, but she thinks better of it and decides to take a softer approach. She knows that he's been obsessed with her ever since his girlfriend died at one of her concerts and tries to explain that holding her hostage is not gonna fix what happened. But he just stares back at her with a blank expression as if he isn't registering a word that she says. Letting her finish, he jumps right back into his plans for the ceremony, reminding her that they're supposed to be getting married tonight. According to him, she agreed to this months ago, and he tells her that it's okay if she's feeling a little bit nervous. Realizing that he's not going to be reasoned with, she decides to try playing into it instead to trick him into letting her out for a tour of the house. But he's not going to be falling for it so easily, saying that he already knows his way around just fine. Alright, Sophia here has a serious problem on her hands, and if she wants to get out of this alive, then she's gonna have to put on the performance of a lifetime. This psycho Paul has her trapped in the recording booth with the door locked from the outside, but that doesn't mean that she's out of options. She'll have to wait for the right opportunity, but the moment that Paul takes his eyes off of her, here's what I would try. First off, most professional recording booths have a ventilation system and a drop ceiling, so I'd try getting into the vents or crawling up through the ceiling if she can fit, allowing her to climb out through the top of the booth and escape into the next room. Now, if that's not an option, then I'd look for a tool like part of a mic stand and try using it to pry the door open by targeting the latch. Otherwise, the next step is to try smashing right through it Jack Nicholson style and using her hand to unlock it from the other side. But if the door is too tough to get through, then the glass windows are always an option. They may be soundproof, but that doesn't mean that they're shatterproof, so with the right strategy, she could easily get through. Glass breaks the easiest at its edges and corners, so we'll use part of the mic stand to strike at the bottom corner where the pane meets the frame. Now, instead of putting all her strength into one heavy swing, going for smaller hits that consistently land in the same spot will actually do a lot more damage. Striking glass creates stress waves that can ripple throughout the entire structure, leaving like microscopic cracks around the impact site. Each successive hit to the same spot adds incremental damage, causing vibrational stress that gradually builds up until the glass can't dissipate the energy. And when it reaches the literal breaking point, the whole window shatters, allowing her to climb straight through. Of course, that's going to cause a lot of noise, so she'll need to be ready to defend herself when Paul comes back. But there's no reason why that can't be part of the plan. After all, he's going to have to let her out eventually for this wedding to happen, so if she arms herself with a weapon, she can use it to jump at the next person who opens the door, and hopefully the element of surprise will help her win the fight. But if Paul refuses to leave her alone, then her only choice is to keep leaning into the delusion and using his own crazy ideas to manipulate him instead. The key here is to match Paul's emotional tone, making him feel understood. By doing this, she's gonna subconsciously activate his mirrored neurons, causing him to feel the same sense of empathy towards her. And with a little bit of luck, it might just be enough to fool him into letting his guard down, giving Sophia an opportunity to escape. As the others get closer to the house, they try pressing JH for more information, but he refuses to spill the beans until the time is right. Just then, he orders Aunt Eleanor to pull over to the side of the road, telling her to turn up the music as he forces Belle out of the car. There's nothing that he can do but go along with it as the man leads him into the woods, and telling him to get on his knees, JH fires a shot straight at the back of his head, leaving him for dead as he goes to the back of the car and forces Eleanor to keep driving. Meanwhile, back at the Stewed, Paul excitedly introduces his bride to their new assistant Penny, leaving the two of them to get ready while he goes to change into his tux. Going to the bedroom, he strips down into his undies and flops onto Sophia's bed, giggling with delight now that all of his dreams are finally coming true. There's just one more thing that he needs for the night to be complete, and opening up a sketchy-looking package, he pulls out a ceremonial wedding dagger that he ordered just for the occasion, staring at it with an intense expression as he practices drawing the blade out of its sheath. Going back over to the mirror, he keeps obsessing over his tie and practicing his smile, trying to make it perfect down to every last detail until he hears a ring at the doorbell. Rushing to the entryway, he's overjoyed to see his friend JH with the two VIP guests, and welcomes them in like Willy Wonka getting ready for a tour of the chocolate factory, leading them to the living room while they wait for things to start. In the studio, Penny takes out the wedding dress to show Sophia, acting like the two of them are going to be best friendos. Strangely enough, she knows that Paul is completely delusional, but goes along with whatever he does just because she thinks that he's funny. So when he told her about his plan to marry the pop star, she obviously had to get in on the action. Opening up the booth, she hands Sophia the dress while standing in the doorway, and the singer notices the woman staring at her with a strange look in her eyes. Snapping out of it, she tells Sophia that she expected her to be prettier, and the actress replies that she needs her makeup from the bathroom. As the girl goes to leave, Sophia reaches for the door, but Penny slaps her hand away and giggles at her for even trying, because the thing is, she doesn't realize that Sophia here is already one step ahead, revealing that she used a band-aid to cover up the lock. Going to the wall, she grabs a guitar and gets into position behind the door, waiting to ambush the next person who walks inside. Sure enough, she clobbers someone straight in the face as they enter the room, but it turns out to be her boyfriend Devante, who collapses to the floor as she knocks him out cold. All right. You see, now we're finally getting somewhere. She might have just accidentally dropped Devante like a sack of potatoes, but with the stalkers distracted, this is still their best opportunity yet to escape. Now, Sophia's idea to put a band-aid over the lock was actually incredibly smart because it gave her a quiet way to get out of the booth without attracting any unwanted attention. So for now, they're still working with the element of surprise, and that's gonna be their biggest advantage. First things first, she has to check on Devante here because she's going to need all the help that she can get. It's too late to change things now, but instead of going back into the house to help them, what Devante should have done was sneak off the property before anybody noticed him, giving him a chance to contact the police instead. So when Sophia blasted him in the face with that guitar, she actually knocked his brain around inside his skull, causing him to go unconscious. As long as there wasn't any lasting damage, he should be back awake in just a few minutes, although he'll still be concussed and not exactly in the best shape for a fight. But once he's back in the game, here's what I would do next. First, they need to use some sort of heavy furniture to barricade the door, but they aren't just going to stay there like a couple of sitting ducks. If you look around, there's actually a window on the opposite side of the room that leads to ground level, so after blocking the door, they should open it and quietly climb outside. By doing this, the barricade at the door becomes a distraction so that when Paul or Penny comes back and realizes that they can't get in, they'll immediately divert their attention towards the door, not knowing that Sophia and Devante are already long gone. This should buy them a few minutes, but from that point, they'll have a difficult decision to make. Once they are outside, they can either go for help while they have the chance or try to save the hostages first. From a self-preservation perspective, the best choice would be obviously to get out of there as soon as possible. But if they feel a moral obligation to protect Abby and her aunt, then their only choice is to sneak back around through the front door. Hopefully, they'll be able to catch whoever's guarding the hostages by surprise, and even if it's the big boy JH, one good hit to the back of the head is all it would need to knock him out, like she did to Devante here. Then they can quietly sneak to the garage, get into one of her cars, and get the hell out of there before the others even realize what the hell is going on. Downstairs, Paul explains that Abby here is going to be the flower girl, but that's when they hear the sound of muffled screaming coming from inside the big red chest. Opening it, they find Pastor Lutzer stuffed inside, and Paul invites him to enjoy some champagne as if there's absolutely nothing weird about this situation. Back in the other room, Devante finally wakes up just as Penny comes back with a baseball bat, but he can't react fast enough before the girl knocks him out cold for the second time. As she turns on Sophia, the actress kicks her away and sends her flying back into the piano, but that's when things take an unexpected turn. Stopping dead in her tracks, she plays the first few notes of Celine Dion's "It's All Coming Back to Me Now" before turning back to Sophia and asking her to play a duet. It's either that or play more baseball, so the pop star reluctantly agrees to join until suddenly the girl hauls off and blasts her across the face with a tambourine for singing flat. Within seconds, they're locked in a battle to the death, shoving Sophia down a flight of stairs as she laughs in her face. Terrified, Sophia crawls for a weapon, but the girl catches up and starts dousing her with lighter fluid. Thinking pretty quickly, she blows out the first match as the girl gets ready to light her up. Annoyed, Penny covers her mouth as she strikes another match, but the pop star grabs a kitchen thermometer and plunges it deep into her stomach. This time, it's Sophia's turn to use the lighter fluid, but just as she's about to set the girl on fire, she changes her mind and decides to leave her there instead. Going back inside, she tries using the phone to call for help, but that's when the crazy girl comes back for round 2. Desperately trying to get away, she ends up pinned against the wall with Penny's arm pressed into her neck, but she hip thrusts the thermometer even deeper into the girl's stomach, shoving her back into the recording booth and locking her inside, and lighting a random piece of music on fire, she drops the flaming sheet of paper into the booth at the girl's feet, brutally burning her to death as Sophia is too shocked to do anything but watch. She eventually grabs a fire extinguisher and uses it to put her out, but the girl is already burned up worse than an overcooked marshmallow. Devante wakes up a second later and mentions that he saw a little girl while sneaking inside. Knowing that it must be Abby, Sophia quickly rushes to help her, telling her boyfriend to hide until she gets back. Well, sure enough, she hasn't been gone for more than 5 seconds before Paul comes looking for her. But that's when things get even more bizarre. Seeing Devante, he starts talking to the man as if he's Sophia, seemingly fully convinced that he's talking to the pop star himself. When he notices Penny's charred body in the recording booth, he just brushes it off as if it's no big deal. And realizing that this guy is completely batshit crazy, Devante decides that the safest choice is to keep playing along, at least for now. Okay, damn, Sophia, talk about dropping some fire in the booth, am I right? Hey, this might look bad, but the truth is, it's actually the best case scenario, because as long as Paul believes that Devante here is actually Sophia, this gives the singer and her friends like a big advantage. Now, first, we should try to understand exactly what's going on in Paul's head to make him think that way. We obviously know that he has a parasocial obsession with Sophia, and he's built his entire reality around the delusion that she's actually in love with him. But after coming back to find Sophia missing, Penny dead on the floor, and his wedding plans gone to just when all of his dreams were about to come true, his mind snapped from an overload of cognitive dissonance. Since his perfect fantasy doesn't match the reality around him, his brain started filling in the gaps using the delusion intact. Now, Devante has to be extremely careful here because if he does anything to break the illusion, then Paul could easily turn violent. And that's why his decision to play along was actually the best thing that he could have done, at least now for anyway. But while he keeps Paul distracted, Sophia can sneak around and try out a few new ideas. First, she needs to find a phone and call the police if she can. After that, it's time to free the hostages, but since she doesn't know if they're alone, it would be a mistake to blow her cover too early. This is when we bring back a tactic that the stalkers used against her before, and that's sneaking into the garage to cut the power. Earlier, Sophia mentioned that she's too busy being a pop star to even know where her breaker box is, but if she really thinks hard, I'm pretty sure that she could figure it out. By shutting off the lights, she'll hopefully trigger JH to go check it out, and he's so dumb that he'll probably leave the hostages completely unattained. It's a long shot, but if everything lines up right, then they can sneak out through the front door, hop the fence, and run for the neighbors to call help before the others even notice that they're gone. Rushing downstairs, Sophia goes straight to Abby and asks the girl what happened to her dad. It turns out that being blind in one eye must have thrown off JH's aim because his shot only grazed the man's head. After sunrise, he wakes up to find Sophia's annoying assistant Kayler standing over him and grabbing the keys to her Porsche. He leaves the girl standing there on the side of the road as he speeds back towards the house. The only problem is everyone's already long gone by the time that he gets there, but finding the wedding book on the floor, he realizes that they've all headed to the chapel for the ceremony. Across town, they're all waiting in their positions for the wedding to start, and Paul enters the chapel announcing that it's time for the ceremony to begin. Jogging down the aisle, he looks at Sophia as if he's never seen this woman before in his life, asking her to take a seat so that they can get started. Turning to the flower girl, he makes her get up and starts tossing invisible flowers along the ground, giving her a thumbs up as she nervously slides back into her seat. That's when Devante appears in the doorway dressed in the wedding gown, but he's not alone. To everyone's surprise, Belle comes walking in behind him and takes Devante's arm as he walks him down the aisle, pretending to be Sophia's father so that Paul won't overreact. Now, this plan actually works, and going down to greet the guests, Belle quietly slips a pocket knife into Sophia's hands, knowing that she'll use it when the time is right. After saying their I do's, it's time for Paul to finally kiss the bride, and leaning in closer, he plants one straight on Devante's lips as the man just stands there paralyzed by a combination of embarrassment and fear. In Paul's head, he's up there with the real Sophia having the most romantic makeout of his life, but that's when things take another horrifying turn. As he pulls back, they realize that he's just stabbed Devante in the stomach, and the man falls over from the injury as Belle rushes the stage. Dropping Paul with a single punch, he grabs JH and punches his head into the holy water, taking him down while Sophia sets herself free. Grabbing the knife from his hand, she tells the creep that it's over before knocking him out with a swift kick to the face. But just when it looks like they're finally safe, JH gets back up and grabs the little girl. Ordering Belle to put down the knife, he makes him kick it across the floor between his feet, but just when it looks like there's nothing that they can do, Devante suddenly jumps up from behind and slits the man's throat. Horrified, the guy can't believe what he's just done, but everyone else is grateful that he saved their lives, even if he'll have to to spend years in therapy processing what the hell just happened. As for Paul, he's still lying on the floor imagining walking hand in hand down the steps with his bride as the others see them off into their limo. In reality, the limo is actually the back of a squad car, and everyone else is being treated by the EMTs as they take him away. For Belle, he tells his daughter that he's officially going to retire, and the two of them speed away to live the rest of their lives in peace. Well, Borderline. Pretty solid movie, interesting concept. I like the way they did it. I actually like the way this movie was shot. It looks really clean, especially on Blu-ray. So shout out to the team. You gotta let me know if we should have done anything differently in the comments though. Thank you so much for watching. Leave a like and subscribe, and check out that How to Beat playlist for more videos just like this one. I'm the guy. We'll see you in the next video, and have a damn good day.